So welcome everyone to our final K-6 / P-6 user group for 2021. Apologies, I couldn't make it a couple of weeks ago. I was a little bit unwell, but hopefully it'll be a roaring success today. We've got a little bit of a surprise for everyone. Didn't actually have this in the email, but we have the wonderful Jody Sailor, who's one of our product managers. And if you've been looking through anything to do with Canvas for Elementary, which is our main topic today, then you'll know that Jody is a gun and is the person who's been driving all the cool stuff that's happening on that front. We do have the agenda for today is pretty simple. We're going to talk about Canvas for Elementary, and then we're going to have Q&A and sharing. When we get to the sharing portion, it doesn't have to be about Canvas for Elementary, as usual with any user group. If there's some cool things that you want to share or just want to chat with each other, any topics that you want to cover off in relation to using Canvas, then yeah, we'd be happy for people to share and discuss things. That'd be really cool. So before we go over to Jody, we've actually asked Phil from Pacific Hills, who's been using Canvas for Elementary since about the middle of the year, like literally just as it came out. And we went into lockdown. He took advantage of the opportunity to use it. So what I might do, I saw that Phil was there on the participants list. Yep. Phil, you should be able to unmute yourself. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen and feel free to jump in and share what you've been doing. And then we'll jump over to Jody, who will maybe give us a bit of an overview of Canvas for Elementary. And yeah, any questions or anything like that, feel free to put that in the chat, and we'll bring that up as we go along the way. But I'll hand it over to you, Phil.
Yeah, cool. I think you might need to let me share. Oh no, there you go. It's let me share screen now. Awesome. Well, I mean, before I do, we jumped in back obviously during lockdown and into Canvas again. So a bit of a background. We've had Canvas here in our junior school for quite a while, but there's not much of an uptake of it. We used it incredibly heavily last lockdown. And I mean, depending on how you guys use Canvas, it's often fairly intensive for one person or a team to build something that is user-friendly for primary age kids. And so within a bit of testing, we did come across the elementary, where we probably didn't use it a lot of the way that Jody's going to show us what it can do. It does, as we kind of mentioned briefly last time, it does kind of replace to an extent, the need to have pretty home pages with a lot of navigation. One of the big wins for us with, teachers that are stressed, teachers that have not been immersed in Canvas all the time, is that there was a few quick, easy wins for us using the elementary. So I'll share my screen and I'll show you what we did. Now, we haven't actually used this for a little while now because we've thankfully been back at school. And so this is my home page here, which does look a little bit empty compared to what it looked like in the full swing of it. So for those of you that haven't looked at elementary at all, effectively it adds a new skin to your experience of Canvas. And you nominate a course. So one of the courses that your kids are enrolled into. If it's the only course, you can do that, or if it's one of many, you can choose one course to be tagged as a homeroom course. And so it changes the way that it functions a little bit. It removes a whole lot of functionality. So this here, Year 3 online learning course, if I click into this, this particular course here, which I've put myself in as a teacher, has got the functionality of homeroom turned on. So you can see down here on the left-hand side, there's far fewer settings options. And that means that this is functioning as a homeroom. And one of the cool things, and this is how we've used it, as you can see here, there's lots and lots of announcements. That was during lockdown. What we did is our teachers built a page for the day and posted that as an announcement. And so then what the user experience for the child is they go and log in on the morning. So for most students only had one published course that they were enrolled in. Our Year 3s and 4s had their year 3 online plus a creative arts plus a language subject. But for most of the school, they only had the one. And so what they would see here when they land, they press their home. You'll notice, actually, I should have pointed that out. The name of the thing on the left no longer says, is it courses? Is that what it used to say? I've had mine for like 6 months now. I forget.
Dashboard.
Dashboard. That's right. Dashboard. Yeah. So it no longer says dashboard. It says home. And when you hit home, you kind of get a view where the old dashboard look is lower down below. However, the top, if there is an announcement in one of the homeroom specified courses that you are assigned to, it will be the first thing you see. So it was a really nice experience for the kids, like almost single click experience where they log on and then bam, you can see here, I just copy pasted one of the announcements for year 3. And they got the same experience every day. It is a little bit of a scroll. Some grades took it to the extent of it being a super scroll of death. Others had a really nice simple thing. And I've got a kindy one ready to copy paste and show you in a sec. But it was very nice and simple. Like they had this little video you can see there was an announcement that our head of school went and our head of junior school would go and post every day. So this here was just a little announcement from him where he would say good morning to all of the kids. So they get to see that, which worked well once we came back to kind of half at school, half online as well, because they could watch those announcements as well. And then each grade would be slightly different, but they just get in the hang of looking at their work and clicking on the links for the day. A lot of our work eventually got directed to Seesaw, just because it was a nice user-friendly way of the kids completing their work. But there was, kind of a little bit of a different experience for the kids depending on the grade. If there's not been a recent announcement, which for me, when I logged on just before, all 3 of these had this message here. It says no recent announcements. So I'm enrolled as a teacher. So I tried not to put myself in rather, and I'm not sure if you guys are kind of managing things, I would suggest not putting yourself as a teacher in every single course. What I did instead is I made this Word document with all of the links because I was going on and checking this every single morning. And if I did enroll myself as a teacher to start with, but I had like a 4-minute scroll of death to start the day, which was not pleasant. So having the links like that way work, but these are 3 courses. So I've got my test course that a colleague and I did a bunch of testing originally just to actually find out what elementary felt like. But then I've got this year 3 one and I've got the year 4 one. And so I thought I wouldn't post one in year 4 straight away and just do it for you so you can see what it feels like. It's super easy. They come into here, they go to create an announcement, and a lot of the time I would build a template for the grades and they'd copy paste the template in and just edit it. And it behaves like a page, like pages in the old way of doing things. So this is just a kindy announcement that I found quickly. You can see it's from Book Week, obviously. And down here, when you select who you want it to post to, most of the time I got the teachers to post it to all sections, but we've got a teachers section that I created in there as well. So I just sent it to teachers now so kids don't get this while we're testing. And this is what kindies look like. So very color specific. There's Zoom links to go and join for their little check-ins throughout the day. There's, English, maths, and then green was something else. So today, obviously, it was music. Other days it was PE. Other days it was health, whatever it is. And so that's kind of all the teachers had to do. Create that announcement, hit post, and then that was what the kids experienced every day. There is a little bit of further functionality, which I'm sure Jody will get into, that you can do, which is things like to-do lists and schedules. We just, because I was trying to think of the upskilling process to get the teachers to use it, we chose not to. But effectively here, when you're landing on your homeroom, you've got the schedule and you've got to do. And if you jump in here to schedule, midway through lockdown, the kids would have been able to scroll up and see all of the announcements for the past, how far back can we go? Oh, actually, I'm sure if I could, there you go. It looks like not too far here at the moment, but you could see all the previous day's announcements. So they could go in and click and then look at their work, or they could see work that has been assigned. So I think I had it here. Here we go. This teacher I enrolled as a student so that I could, we could do some testing together. When she goes to her homepage, I just quickly assigned a page. So on a page, if you go to edit right down the bottom, you can add it to a student to-do list. And so for her now, she goes onto this schedule right here. You can see that there is actually, I forgot, she's enrolled as a teacher in the year 4 learning. So you can see that announcement we just posted right then come up. And you can see this page, let's get baking. I just went in and I assigned it to today. So to add it to the kids' to-do list today. So if you're using elementary in probably years 4 to 6-ish, you could probably get them to start using the schedule to see their work. And then when you assign quizzes, assignments, you create a page that's got a video and some stimulus underneath it or whatever it is, you can add it as either due date, assignment and quiz, or a to-do list for a page. And then that would all appear here in the student's schedule, which is really kind of nice. And I suppose the final thing, which I briefly showed, I'll just stop acting as her. Well, there you could just see very quickly, she had a whole bunch of no announcements. The students still get to their, so if you're a school that uses multiple courses, we are, but we don't use them very much. So like our year 3 students are enrolled in about 9 courses, for example, like 1 for every subject, although they're fairly empty most of the time. If you scroll down beneath all of your announcements, you can see all of the published courses, just like the old view. And you can also then go down further to your unpublished courses that have not been archived or anything like that. So you can see those down there. And so the students, so I was mentioning before, our year 3 and 4 students were enrolled in a languages subject and a creative arts subject. They would see those 2 down here. So they could click on those and it's the same experience. When you click on a subject that is within make sure I get the language right. Is it within a sub account that is listed as elementary? Is that correct? Yeah. So if the course is in a sub account that is listed as elementary, same thing happens. If you've put an announcement within that course, it will appear at the top. There you can see it says there's no announcement. And then whatever you've designated as the home page will be the first thing they land on. So if that's a beautiful page that you've already built, that's got lovely links and everything, your work is not wasted by using elementary. They still land on it. There's just a little bit of extra, I suppose, user experience help prior to getting here. So you can still do that. So the way I got our creative arts teachers and our language teachers to do is they were creating an announcement here each day. And they would just post the announcement and the kids would see it. And it's kind of nice that way. Yeah, I think that's probably to the extent of how we've used it. To help Scrolls of Death, I just thought of something else. If some grades wanted to have videos throughout, one of the difficulties is, if you might have remembered when I clicked here, you'll notice that pages and modules are both no longer on the left. You still can actually access them using the URL. And so if you edit the URL manually and say pages / and then just write the name of a page that doesn't exist, it takes you kind of in the back door to create a brand new page. You can copy the URL, stick a video or a YouTube link or whatever it is, and then just insert that link somewhere. So that's a little bit of a workaround, a backdoor thingy that we found as well, which is kind of nice. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything else specific to the way we used it anyway. Is there any questions or anything from how we've done it, or how the teachers found it or the kids found it?
Phil, I have a lot of questions, but I don't think they're appropriate for this whole audience, but I'm so excited to hear more about specifically the teachers and parents.
I'm sure a few of them would have been.
Yeah, far away, Jody, if you've got questions.
Well, I just want to pick your brain on, how students and teachers responded, and parents, excuse me, and just what were the pros and cons? What were the things that they had difficulty with or not? And so I don't know for sure if this is the appropriate audience, or I'm happy to schedule a separate time to really dig deep in and hear more.
Yeah, no, I think it was good. I think the sudden rush into lockdown meant that we didn't get to use the full suite of the features, as you mentioned. I think it would have been a different story if we did attempt to go and teach them how to use English inside our English course, maths inside our maths course, and so on, and show them how to do a separate announcement per subject per day. That would have been a bit of a learning curve. And actually ended up being quite a long term, but for a seemingly short term solution, having a semi-scroll of death was not that big a problem. Like our worst was one particular grade, and it would probably be 3 or 4 big scrolls of work. It was very pretty, and the kids got over it after about a week, but it was a bit visually overwhelming. Parents did like it compared to last time. I know last time I shared how we built the course, and there was a lot of clicking and a lot of navigating. I think the biggest win was it was a little bit more asynchronous, which you kind of need in a home learning setting anyway, because all of the work was on one page and the kids most of the time knew which days they hadn't done any work. It was quite easy to go and find the announcement that you need. Whereas the way we built it last time was it was all split into subjects with lovely pretty buttons, and there's a lot of clicks to get anywhere. It was nicely sorted and it was logical, but there was a lot of clicks. Yeah, so it was good in that sense. I think there was an issue early on, I noticed, I'm not sure if it's been fixed, with kids being able to create their own groups and create little chats and things. I know I put in a ticket for that and it got pushed up, and I'm not sure where that ended up. But with the switch over to elementary, there's a little tick box that allows them to create groups or not. That tick box disappeared. So I'm not sure if it's back again yet.
Yeah, it is back. So good news.
Awesome. There you go. Well, and look, that was a very, very, very minor issue. We just had a couple of kids, missing each other, obviously, and making little groups, and kids felt left out and blah, blah, blah. So, but it wasn't a big issue, but it was just a minor one. Yeah, it was a pretty good experience. Parents liked that it was, you just log on to one spot and you can see it more easily, which was good. Yeah. Oh, I can see there's a few questions in here as well.
Yeah, there are. So the first question is from Russell. What was the main way students would submit work? Was it via Canvas or any other apps? And I also had the same question as Janelle here. How do you use Canvas now that students are back at school and things are kind of normalizing?
Yeah. I mean, first question, it kind of slowly morphed. So we were slowly getting Seesaw up and running ready for the kids, and it just happened to kind of land at the same time, although it was brand new come lockdown. So we didn't want to start with it. We introduced it slowly throughout the term as people got wind of the fact that I had it there for them if they wanted it. And so to start with, kids were submitting work through Canvas. However, that was often take a photo of one piece of work and message it to your teacher, or sometimes it was email. We didn't use any of the the assignment or the quiz features, because that was just one extra thing to try and get teachers who are already stressed and tired and worried about the lockdown in general, one more thing for them to learn to be able to feel like they're functioning in Canvas effectively. So that kind of actually paved the way to need something like Seesaw, which kind of out of the box was very user-friendly for the teacher to go, oh, they can just submit work like that. So yeah, once we got into Seesaw, most of the work was through that. And when we were on Canvas, the kids were told just one piece of work a day, just to help balance that out. And we were very expectational when it came to the kids completing work, because it was just a stressful time, and some were able to, some weren't, and it was easier just to come across, we wanted there to be look after you. So yeah, and in terms of how we use it now we're back at school, not at all at the moment. We've almost gone completely non-device at all, just because they've been staring at screens for 123 days or something. And it's amazing to see the habits that they've formed. Probably like a lot of you struggle like I do. Whenever you're slightly bored, you pick your phone up. The kids do it too. They're just sitting there in their hands, just wanted to try and find the iPad and turn them on. So we've been fairly intentional in not using the devices as much as possible for the rest of this year, and then we'll reassess what that looks like next year. But the particular culture here is that it's a bit hard to get a lot of things like Canvas have a lot of traction in the classroom. We haven't really used it much outside of lockdown time. Yeah, and a lot of that did do, as I'm sure some of you found, is the difficulty to make it actually work for elementary kids, especially with the way that teaching happens here. But yeah, not much at all.
There's one more question that Janelle's just snuck in. Maybe we'll answer that, and then we'll move on to Jody. Yeah, how do you see it working for primary students?
By it, do you mean elementary, Jody? Okay. Yeah, it really depends on the way that your school does delivers learning. I mean, where a lot of the way that we still teach is very much, teacher-driven programs. It might be worksheets or whatever from the front. So it doesn't really have much of a place for us necessarily. However, if you're in a school where you are preparing things that are being able to access asynchronously, whether it be video instruction or, maths lessons where they can do flipped learning or anything like that, definitely. And especially with the added features of elementary, they would be able to just, press home and straight away the most recent announcement comes there. Or if you're not putting announcements in the home course, you can go down to, click on maths, and then the most recent announcement would be there, or all of the allocated pages would be there for them to look at. So I definitely do think it helps bridge that gap of accessibility for the lower age kids, especially if you don't have someone with, lots and lots and lots and lots of hours to build beautiful courses that are user-friendly.
There's a couple more good questions that come in, but I think we might circle back to them. I don't want to forget about them, but let's dive into Jody, because maybe some of this will be covered with what Jody will share with us. And if we don't, then we can always circle back and answer them.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Paul. And Phil, I feel like I should hire you to come help demo all of these features, especially since you have a real life experience. I don't know if your schools would be very happy with me doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we do want to walk through just the whole Canvas for Elementary experience. And so feel free, though, please just stop me, shout out if you have a question or a concern or anything. Of course, we've got two other awesome Instructure folks here that'll be watching the chat for me if I'm not paying close attention. And I'm totally fine with, everybody stopping me or telling me when I've missed something. I am trying to share the right thing and it's just not happening. Let me try this again. Okay, it's coming just awfully slowly. Also, I will apologize. I keep looking up at my ceiling. It's because my children are supposed to be in bed, but I hear them scurrying around. I'm sure they're swapping stories and thinking they're getting away with it because mom is busy. So I apologize for that. I'll try not to look up too many times. So real quickly, I just want to kind of give an overview of where we are here. So this is a Canvas for Elementary experience, similar to what Phil was just showing. I am logged in as a student so that you can see this from the student perspective. You can see here that I have a homeroom course similar to what Phil already showed. And this is just a smaller, quick announcement, right? I'm seeing exactly what my teacher wants me to know on Monday coming back and what we're going to be covering in each of the subjects that I am assigned to. Within the homeroom, we specifically did not want teachers putting all the content. So Phil mentioned that you can't get to pages and modules and all of those things. And that's because we did want that to be kept in the subjects. There's a few reasons why. One being that grade passback will work better if they are in their individual subjects, and then it goes to the proper grade books that you might be transferring any grades to. And then also that organization for students and teachers. I know when I was still in my elementary classroom, I had very specific locations for certain content or folders on my desktop or my file cabinet with all of my stuff, right? One drawer for each of the subjects. And so that's kind of the same idea here, also to not overwhelm students and that sort of thing. We do have some color coding that is done. In my classroom, math was always red. Sorry, I try my hardest to make sure I say it properly for all of you. You'll notice I did come in here and change the names. But for maths, it was always red. My students had a red notebook, a red folder, and I just had to scan the room and see that everybody had their red folders out. Same idea here, where students can see that anything in red is going to be referring back to that subject, as well as our important dates over here. So a couple other things that I'll just point out real quickly. We are using different language so that students in the primary or junior schools are not hearing things like courses or things that are words that they're not typically used to hearing. We talk about the different subjects that they are learning, not necessarily separate courses. And so wanting to use language that makes sense. Also using a lot of icons, because a lot of these are pre-emergent and emergent readers. And so we want to be able to help them to see where they're going as they're learning maybe to read some of these words. So mine in particular has a schedule, but they may not understand what that word is yet. They could understand what the calendar looks like and that sort of thing. Yours would say marks, mine says grades. They can understand the star, that sort of thing. We also used a very specific font, and we did this on purpose because most students, as they are learning to read and write at these younger levels, they're not learning what my students always called it the hooked A. Really what they're using is more the single story A and G. And so making sure that it is, a font that uses all of those letters that they're used to recognizing. Also making sure that everything is distinguishable. So my capital I, my lowercase l, my number 1 are not going to look identical, and leaving students who are learning how to read trying to figure out what those words are. From the teacher's perspective, they are able to set a friendly name. So in current Canvas, if Canvas for Elementary were not turned on, students typically, if given permission, can change the name to whatever they'd like. I know I have seen students, I'm an adjunct professor at one of our local colleges, and I've seen students who've changed things to my favorite subject, or they say my favorite course, or my favorite professor. That's even adult learners. So that could get very confusing, of course, as a teacher who's trying to get all of the students into the same subject. We want to make sure that they're seeing the exact same thing and able to follow the flow. So a teacher can set the friendly course or subject name, which will then show for the students the exact same. The other thing that is important here is that we've updated the information that's on these subject cards. So you might have recognized within regular Canvas, you would see like if there's new announcements and new assignments and new discussions and that sort of thing. But typically those are not things that really are resonating with our youngest learners. And especially when a lot of times we say best practice is to hide all of those things and put everything in modules so that it's a very structured, clear, succinct thing for them. And so we wanted to make these more user-friendly and also help students to guide their learning path for the day. So if they have something that is due today, it will list, 1, 3, 5 items due. If they've completed their work, you can see I have nothing else due here, or Hermana has nothing else due today. But she does have one missing assignment, so we will keep track of those. I just didn't change due dates, so I apologize. The student is really not this far behind. And then also if they have an announcement for that particular subject, it will go here. And then from the teacher perspective, on the calendar or from assignments, you can mark things as important dates. So typically, especially in these younger levels, we have a lot of long-term projects that we don't want students to lose sight of, or we have field trips that are coming up and that sort of thing. Maybe it's parent-teacher conferences or no school next Friday, whatever it may be. The teacher can put those on their calendar and they can mark them as important dates so that those are shown here. Really what we wanted to do is just get the most important information for parents and students and get rid of all the noise that they were seeing within Canvas. Some of you may have heard me tell a story of my own daughter who, while we were in virtual learning, she is the type of student that wanted to quickly get her work done and then have 10 extra minutes to go out and have recess every hour. Yet she still would click on so many other things, even though they were not pertinent to her. I watched one day, it was great having my own little observation lab here with my own children using Canvas. But I watched her click on 35 other links before the 36th, which was the one item that she actually needed to do to get her assignment done. And that just broke my heart, because we know that students need to have focus. They need to have a very streamlined process for getting to where they need to be. They shouldn't be seeing so many links and, trying to figure out where they need to go. She was more just curious. So there's a variety of reasons that students click on those, but we really wanted to focus their attention, promote their success, and just keep them oriented to what's most important. We did change this to home. Phil mentioned that. This one still says homeroom, but we are fixing that. So it will say home as well, because your homeroom is actually this course that is, sharing any of the announcements or important information that you might need to have. So that will be an update coming soon, but home makes more sense. Students know where to go. It's much easier than dashboard. Most of our youngest learners have no idea what a dashboard is. My son is 15, has never driven a car, and I don't know that if I said dashboard, he would understand that the little image that we use in Canvas is actually like a speedometer or something on the dashboard. So we wanted to make sure it's very clear to students. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to schedule. And this is where Phil was mentioning that, if you're putting things on the different dates, then you would be able to see those as a student. So from here, I can see that there are different announcements that are important for me to pay attention to today. I can also see my assignments. So if I hadn't already completed this one, it would have shown as opened. I can see I've completed it today and my teacher has actually already graded it as well. And then if I have missing assignments, we saw on my dashboard or my home that I had three missing assignments in science and one in math. So we specifically wanted to make sure that students and parents could see if there were missing assignments, but also still have it in a place where they can open it up when they're ready. I know in my classroom, try as I may, there were students that no matter what they did or I did or their parents were doing, or we were all coordinating to try to do to help the student, they would get behind, whether it was that they just didn't enjoy school, they were absent for a few days. We all know that was a major issue and continues to be with COVID. So we want to make sure that students are able to find these missing assignments, but they don't feel overwhelmed by them. So we did keep them under a carrot. We've put them at the end of the day, and that just moves every day as long as they have missing assignments, but then they can open it up, see what is missing. You'll notice the color coding is still there again. But also, some things do build one upon another. And so if my student needed to complete the scientific method assignment before they could move on to the pre-assessment, I would want them to be able to come in here and do that. So it makes it very easy too for a teacher to be able to share what needs to be completed, how they can find it quickly. The other thing, and I'm just going to jump over here. Are you able to see this slide? Okay, awesome. I wanted to make sure I didn't show just the one tab. So the other thing that is really awesome, and I saw Phil was working on this too, he had different colored Zoom meetings for students for the various subjects that they may need to join. But if you are still in a hybrid mode, or if you have students who are learning virtually, we have added also the ability for a teacher to create, whatever that online learning time is called. So maybe this is my online office hours, but it could also be maths instruction or whatever it is. You could put that on the calendar and it would show on the subject for students with now a join button. So they can quickly jump in and see exactly what time they're supposed to be in. So here on October 13th, I had a meeting at 1 p.m. I can just quickly join and that will jump them right into the Zoom meeting, as long as the teacher has put in that link to the Zoom room. If a student were to come here, let's say at like 1:15 and realize, oh, I'm supposed to be in a meeting, we do change this so they can see that it is in session versus not in session at the moment too. So they can see that they are missing that meeting. So a really awesome addition. This was added for Canvas for elementary, and then we also are working on adding it for all of Canvas because we recognize that that is beneficial for students, whether they are, our youngest kindergartner all the way up to our post-secondary students who are in a master's program or whatever it may be. I'm going to pause there. Paul and Rio, are there any questions or things that I need to pause and answer to yet?
Yeah, Kylie asked, where do global announcements?
Yep, thank you. I was trying to remember that one. I already forgot. So for students or teachers or whoever is scheduled to get those global announcements, they would just see it here, just like they normally would, and they would just scroll past that, or they could, say, yep, I've read, and then they would just see their normal dashboard. So they are viewed the exact same way, just at the top of their page when they're in Canvas until they dismiss it, if they're able to.
Yep. And Carly just asked another one. So
awesome.
The join feature, when might that be coming for Big Blue Button or Teams?
It is available for Teams. I need to double check on Big Blue Button. I think it is ready already as well, but I need to double check that. We started with Zoom because it was the one that we were hearing most were using, or a larger majority, and then we added it for Teams, Google Meets. I couldn't think of what that was called. Sorry. And then we were also adding it for WebEx, was one we were hearing, especially from our post-secondary, and then Big Blue Button.
Awesome. Can I ask a question with the resources button?
Yes.
One of the reasons we didn't get the kids to ever go there was the student applications button. Is there any way, or is there a way coming that you can dictate which things are going to appear there and not? Reason I ask is because we're a K-12 school. We've got, a range of LTIs installed, at quite a higher level. And so all of the global LTIs just appear there under student applications. And so at one point we were using Atomy, the navigator. And every time you created a new page, that would create effectively a new LTI. So if I go in here in my student applications now and I scroll, there's heaps of them.
Right.
Is there any way, do you know, or is that something that people thought about coming of selecting which, what are the student applications are viewable and which ones aren't?
Yeah, so let me just jump here so that you could see those. So student applications are typically whatever has been added either to the account level, sub-account level, or to a specific course. So if I were in a subject, it would show just those that are per subject or the account. And so there are a couple of things I would like to adjust. These buttons were much more beautiful and user-friendly in my designs originally, but we have a difficulty with getting a large enough icon to make it, not just blurry or something for students. So there are still some things with these buttons that we want to make better. And then also, yes, we have been talking about, is there a way that either a teacher or an admin could come in and favorite for those specific sub-accounts or something instead of showing everything? Because if I'm a third year student and I don't care about everything for the rest of the grade levels or levels, I shouldn't have to see them. So we are talking about ways that we can make that an efficient process. Not anything yet done though. Great question.
Cool. I think we're good to keep going.
Okay, so I'm going to jump over here just real quickly. Mine says grades, of course, yours would say marks, but this is where a student would see how they're doing overall at a specific, each of those specific subjects. I don't have a lot of grades in this because it's just a pretend account that I'm using, of course, but as a student receives those grades, they would be able to see just how they're doing overall, and then they can dig into the specific subject, just as they can do in Canvas today. And then they can see the more granular information about how they did on that particular assignment, if there's any feedback from the teacher, all of those sorts of things. While I'm here in the subject, Phil touched on this a little bit, but inside of the subject, I can have specific announcements again that are just for this particular subject. And then again, there could be an awesome homepage here. I haven't built one out, but this could be anything that the instructor wanted to include. So we've seen anything from just an overview of what this subject is to some teachers are changing this regularly, so it goes along with their module for the week, or it has videos for a parent at home to be able to help as we're learning different methods for multiplication and that sort of thing. The subject itself, the schedule, while I'm inside of my subject, you'll notice we do shrink this image. We wanted that to be shown so that a student knows that, yes, they have clicked into the right subject, but we will be shrinking this actually further because we want to make sure students have plenty of landscape to see everything they need. But here from the schedule, I'm seeing, again, all of the things that are due on those particular days. I'm seeing any announcements that were posted on that date. But in addition to that, I'm seeing those missing assignments, everything just scoped now to this particular subject. So if it's math time, whether it's at home or, we've done our whole group instruction and now it's independent practice time, students could log in and do this. We have a lot of our primary and junior teachers who are doing a lot of center type work or workshops, depending on where you are, you call these different things, but where students are actually, moving around their classroom and doing things, and then they're submitting it through Canvas, but they know what those specific centers or workshops are that they need to complete here as well. And then one other thing that I will point out, the grades we just looked at are the marks. Resources we just looked at as well. Modules are set very much like they are in Canvas today. Very easy for students to see exactly what they need to do there. I do want to highlight just really quickly, and I'm thinking this one will work for it. Yes. This particular course has what is called our assignment enhancements turned on. And I don't know if all of you have seen it or have thought about turning this on. This one is a feature preview. It's something that we're working on still and gathering feedback as we're doing this work. But with assignment enhancements, it changes the view of what students are seeing for submitting their work. And I wanted to point this out because I think it's very user-friendly for our elementary students, especially our primary students, because they can see easier what they are being asked to do. So we have large buttons with the icon so that they can see that. If they need to do, like Phil, you were mentioning, a lot of it was just take a quick picture of your worksheet and submit. They could just click the upload, take a picture with their webcam and submit it, and it's done. There are several different ways, of course, that students can do their assignments. This one is just an upload, but if there was a media file that they were supposed to do, maybe it's just record themselves reading a book or something, that is an option that they could do here, and they would see the media recording button and that sort of thing. ARC is actually Studio. I forgot that I've never updated the name of this in my account, so I will take care of that. But then also the more is if you have any of those LTI tools that are connected. So if you're a Google school or a Microsoft school and students could submit through those, you would have those options here as well for students. The other thing that is nice is a parent or a student can see, you know, I'm on attempt 1, I'm in progress. As soon as I do submit, this will show that it's been submitted and that I'm waiting for feedback. Feedback comes in the same spot. So a student would be able to come back here, see what they have done, and also be able to see the feedback alongside. So one issue that we have in Canvas, you'll learn I'm very transparent, and I'll just tell you our issues. I forgot we were recording. One issue we have is finding feedback. I didn't recognize it was so hard for students to find feedback until I had given oodles of feedback to my students at a college level. And 2 kept coming back to me with questions. And I thought, why are they not reading my feedback? And when I sat down with them, it was just that they were not seeing that tiny view feedback button. So we've cleaned that up in the assignment enhancements, where it will actually come in as a tray. And as soon as they've gotten feedback, that tray is open for them to see the feedback alongside their submission. One other thing that is huge for this is if they are doing a text entry assignment, we auto save their draft every few seconds, actually. So students are not going to lose work. You know, if they got started and then it was time to clean up for the day and they needed to finish it as homework tonight, or if they needed to finish it tomorrow, it will be saved as a draft. They can come back in and finish and then submit their assignment. If they have multiple attempts, which this one is set up as, they could then resubmit a new attempt, and then they could go back and forth between those 2 attempts also and see their feedback alongside. So this one is not only for Canvas for elementary, this is available to all. If this was not in a sub account that had Canvas for elementary, the only thing that you would see differently is that it would have our normal Canvas font, not this font that we use for Canvas for elementary. Otherwise, it all is the same here.
Would you go so far as to say that it's not a bad idea for schools to consider turning it on this summer break?
Yeah, we actually are getting excited about this becoming the new flow for all students. We do not have an exact date for that yet, but Paul, you're the best. Yes, I would highly, highly encourage it. We have a space in the community where I'm answering questions, taking feedback, all of that. But eventually this will be the flow that we would be asking all to use. So I would highly encourage, if you are ready and think that you know, test it out, see if you have any questions or concerns, get us that feedback. Now is the time to share that with us so that we could be changing it as we're getting ready to make sure it's ready for all students. One thing that we are still working on, just to be fully transparent again, is our observer accounts with Canvas for elementary. We just recently released where on the web, if you have, let's say, 5 children, it was just showing everything before, and now you can select a specific student or a child of yours that you want to see, and you would only see their courses and subjects that make sense for them. We are moving that into traditional Canvas as well, and that will be there shortly. So with that, once that piece is done, then we'll be able to finish our piece for this so that parents or observers would see exactly what their student sees here. Right now, it reverts back to the old view of the assignments. even if you have assignment enhancements enabled. But that work should be done rather quickly so that, as I'm sitting down with my child on our own devices, we would see the same thing. Maybe I'm having to call from work in the evening or something, we'd see the exact same thing. So just so that you're aware of that still coming. So if you do turn it on and have that question.
So our 2022 school year starts end of January. All that work should be done by then, I would imagine.
That is our plan, yes.
Yes, cool.
Awesome. So I'm going to go back here and you're going to see the inner workings here for just a second of Canvas. I'm going to move to the teacher of these courses just so that you can kind of see what their view looks like. And you saw a little bit of this with Phil, of course. You'll notice that we have almost identical to what the student sees. And we did that intentionally because a lot of teachers need to be able to model for their students. There are projectors in classes across the world now. And I remember back in the day having to ask a student to please log in so I could show and then pray I did not click on the wrong thing and show something that I shouldn't have. And we don't want teachers to be in that position. So we really wanted their view to look very similar to the students. So as they are teaching or modeling where to click, the student is seeing the same thing on their screen as the teacher is showing up at the board. You'll notice I don't have anything due or missing assignments and things. I'm the teacher, so that doesn't really pertain to me. But I have the same subjects with the same color and view, everything the same there. The one exception that you'll notice that is different is I have a to-do list. And this was, teachers typically in the bottom right-hand side of their dashboard had their to-do list of what needed to be graded. And we wanted to make sure that teachers in Canvas for Elementary still had that possibility because it's an easy way to have those calls to action to know that there are things that do need marking. So here, again, I'm a lucky teacher that didn't have many students and no work to be graded. But if there were things that were waiting, of course, we would just have the links out. It would open up SpeedGrader just like we would expect so that the teacher could do all of that marking. The other thing is when I go into a specific subject, we had the edit buttons. We still have an edit here so that I can just edit my announcement very quickly. I have my student view. So if I wanted to see this from their perspective, and then this manage subject button. And that really is where then instead of having to do like Phil was mentioning, where I have to understand what to put at the end of the URL to get to pages and things, if you're using the individual subjects, this will open it up to then be working on those assignments and discussions and announcements and everything for that specific subject. So from here, I can then go to my assignments page, all of those things that I would expect to be able to do within Canvas. And then a couple of things here, I can choose a different image. You'll notice this was the image that I had on the subject card for my students. It's also the one that they saw as soon as they opened up the subject. So we use both for the card as well as the banner. If a teacher wants to change those, they can. So we have a lot of teachers, especially in these younger levels, that want to have their banner go along with whatever unit of study they're doing, or they want to go along with the different holidays or whatever it may be. And so if they want to mix that up, they can change it, of course, to have the same thing across the board. But if they wanted to have different images, they could. This is also where they select that color then that I was mentioning is on the subject card, as well as on the icons for the important dates. And then this is where also I could give it a friendly name. So here you can see my course code. I changed it here. The teacher would probably not be changing it here because that would come from most likely a student information system sync. But from the friendly name they could put in. So if I were to change this to my favorite subject, I was a math specialist, so of course it's my favorite. That's what my students would see across the board as well. The other thing that can be done here is if this were a homeroom course, as Phil mentioned, and I needed to promote it, I could make this a homeroom course. So I just click here to enable as homeroom. If also teachers are creating maybe manual subject cards, they could also link these back to whatever is coming from the homeroom. So if you were sending one in your nightly sync and that was the only one for the homeroom, your teachers, should you give them permission, to create all of their other subjects manually, and then they could sync that back to the homeroom so that all of those enrollments and everything we're keeping in sync with that homeroom. Rio, Paul, what have I missed? Anything that I need to cover? I know we're like down to the last minute here. It went by really fast.
Jeff asked if we can use this with blueprints. We said yes.
Yep.
Anything to keep in mind with that?
Nope, blueprints should work the exact same as you would expect. So we have tried really hard to make sure your templates, your blueprints, any of those things that you're using, we wanted you to continue to be able to take advantage of those within Canvas for Elementary as well. The other thing is, if you were to turn this on and then you decided you wanted to go back to old Canvas, I hope that's not the case, but there are times that that does happen for one reason or another. But we've made all of this backwards compatible as well. So if your teachers had been creating all their course content and then you decided, let's turn off Canvas for Elementary, you could go ahead and turn that off and it would not cause any problems. All of your content and everything will work. It would just revert back to the old dashboards and all of those things.
Blythe also asked earlier, Rio gave us some great resources, but just in relation to the mobile student app, anything to keep in mind for that?
Yes. My intention was that we would be able to get all of this out the door and everything just set. But we all know how development works. So the homeroom dashboard works beautifully on your app. Everything works great if you are using the mobile browsers because it's using what we've built and we've made everything accessible and responsive. But if you are using the specific Canvas student app, students will not see everything across the board yet. Our mobile team is working really hard to get everything up to where we are right now with Canvas for Elementary. So over the coming couple of months, all of that should be up to par with what we have here in the browser version.
I thought it might also be worth just noting that if you do decide to test it and turn Elementary on at a high sub account level, it does change the view for every single student and teacher that is enrolled in if they've got a single enrollment, it'll change it for all of them. So even if they've only got one subject that's in, K-6 and the rest of them are high school, it'll change the way that their experience for Canvas is for every subject. So there is the 3 little dots up the top there where you can switch back to the old view, even if you're within a course, which a lot of our high school teachers that come to teach music were very happy once I found that button. So clicking classic view just goes back to feel like it used to, even though it's within, it doesn't change the thing. I just thought that was similar to what you were just saying, going back to it.
Yep. And Phil, you were like just perfect segue there. That's exactly where I was going to go next. That's why I jumped back to home. For teachers that are teaching across different sub accounts, or, we have a lot of specialists that teach, art or music at various levels. So they may have some that are in Canvas for Elementary, some that are not. They may have professional development courses that are across those different things. So they do have the capability to switch this back to the more traditional view. If their subject is in a sub-account that does not have Canvas for Elementary, they would see just the regular Canvas experience inside of that course or subject. While the others that are in that sub-account with Canvas for Elementary, they would see the elementary view. And we've intentionally not said elementary anywhere. So I don't know if you've noticed, but when I'm, looking at this from the teacher or the student perspective, we keep calling it Canvas for Elementary because that was the intent, is we knew we needed to do something for these youngest learners. But really, there's nothing here that would have a secondary teacher asking, why am I in an elementary experience? Because we've not called it that anywhere. So we've said homeroom view or the card view, classic view, those types of things, because we want to make sure that if you wanted to turn this on for someone that was not actually a primary or junior school, you could. And we have many, many secondary. So here in the States, it's grades 6 through 12 who've actually turned it on for those levels as well, not just their elementary students.
Kylie asked, what would be your advice to admins or teachers moving from normal Canvas to super elementary for Canvas?
I think the couple of things that kind of catch people off guard is how the homeroom course is used, because it really is meant just for that information to students. So making sure that your teachers and students have a firm foundation of what that homeroom course is for, so they're not trying to create everything from that course, unless that was, you know, what you really wanted to do. Phil has a great example of how they were doing that and it was working well for them. So if that's what you selected to do, that would, you know, make sense. Obviously, I'm always a proponent of start small. You know, if teachers are not ready to jump right in, it just becomes overwhelming. And we know right now, education is hard. I had to teach my first class actually with a mask on, and it was the hardest thing I had to do. And I just felt for our teachers who have been in, you know, classrooms across the globe with their masks on with students and trying to do all of these things. Not to mention jumping in and having to do virtual learning when, let's be honest, most of them did not sign up to be an online educator. They love and thrive on being with their students and in a classroom. So starting slow. If there are ways that you can use templates or blueprints to help them, you know, you could put in all of the images. We have some awesome images that are available. In fact, some of these come straight from a pack that was made available from our, what is that team called? That's terrible. All of a sudden I lost their name. Instructional designers, thank you. So there are some things, there's lots of commons courses and things that you can look at as well to get some of those ideas. But yeah, just helping the teachers to understand why you have the different subjects is also important. As Phil mentioned, this takes away the need to have that amazing, huge homepage that a lot of teachers were creating, or a lot of administrators or instructional designers were creating for teachers. We found that typically those were taking 7 to 10 hours at minimum. And then they were just linking to the other courses. And so that was part of this, is we wanted to take that away and just have the subjects available so that it was easy to link out to those different things without teachers having to do a lot of work. Yeah. But yeah, we've got lots of resources and things in our community. Currently, they're in the Canvas for Elementary space that will be moved over into just the normal K-12 space on November 23rd. So just a heads up there, if you were to go in and look at some of that content, it will be moved just because we've kind of run our course with that group. And so we want to bring it into the larger group with all across, instead of just that small group.
Well, we've just hit past 4:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. And it's currently after 10:30 your time, Jody. So thank you so much for coming along and sharing with us. There is one more question from Russell. I'm not sure how everyone's placed, but hang on for another minute. But it's a little bit specific. Well, what would grades look like with the complete and incomplete assignments that only use rubrics and comments? Do you need scores to have assignments with scores to use this feature best?
It works the exact same way that we do any of the marking in Canvas. So if you have just the check mark for complete, that will show. So no, you don't necessarily have to have a grade to go along with it. It would just show that check mark instead of, you know, what we saw with the 8 out of 10.
Perfect. All right. Now, there was something really early on from Jeff. Jody, don't feel like you need to hang on, but because it's getting quite late in your time.
That's okay.
But Jeff, I'm trying to find it. What did you ask, Jeff?
Yeah, it was you know, whether other schools were wanting to go to a hybrid model, I believe. I just
probably more general question is just who is around that is actually doing hybrid and continuing on in a blended way.
Feel free to unmute. This is a user group.
Have we got that setting on?
Yeah, Carey Grammar's hybrid at the moment, because we still have probably 10 to 20% of kids who are isolating at any one time. So we sort of do that in different ways depending on the year level. Happy to chat if that's best.
Yeah, I'm more thinking an ongoing future vision that this is what we're doing.
Yeah. So again, we've had a new principal who came in at the start of COVID. or 6 weeks before we first shut down. And his vision is to move us to a sub school that is Kerry online, with delivering courses, especially to our international students. Built on Canvas, of course.
Of course. No, I appreciate that.
And super Canvas for elementary. All right. Well, yeah, we have gone over and people have had to drop off, but we did have a bunch more people earlier. And thank you so much for everyone for coming to our user group today. And unless there's anything else, we'll wrap it up. All right.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Thanks, Jody.